Now, earlier I asked Matt Porter from Matt Porter Web Design in Ipswich if hacking small businesses' websites is common and what they can do to protect themselves.
It can be quite common to small businesses or to any businesses because there are a number of methods for gaining access to your data on the internet. So it's very important that whenever you have a system that's running online, that every one of those systems has a strong password, which is in all intents and purposes unguessable. So use a password generator and make sure you don't use the same password for every service. Each one of those services should have a different password, and use a password manager. Use a decent password manager to hold those. Don't write them down on a piece of paper and stick them on the screen.
Is it something that small businesses may not have the budget and therefore skimp on things like virus protection?
By definition, small businesses are going to have smaller budgets than larger ones, and sometimes you are faced with skimping perhaps on the services that you have to provide with websites, such as hosting. You may go to a company that's providing you with very, very cheap hosting, domain name registration management, all of those kind of tech terms that relate to websites. If you're paying a company a smaller amount of money, then you kind of need to expect that the service level is not going to be the same as someone you'd be paying more to. If you are using budget services, then you have to take responsibility yourself to ensure that there are adequate firewalls in place on the hosting and on the website itself, so that a lot of the time passwords are broken because of repeated attempts to guess them, which are done automatically. So by having firewalls in place which will block that traffic after a certain number of guesses because it would recognize it as an attempt, it's those kind of systems that you need to have in place, and they're the kind of questions you have to ask your providers. Are the sites being backed up regularly? Is everything safe? Is it password protected? Have I got adequate security patches that have been applied to my services so that if a weakness is discovered, is it patched quickly to avoid my site being hijacked?
In the case of this particular website, they've had a ransom note to say, we want money or otherwise we won't release your website. Have you heard of that before?
There is a kind of an ecosystem around this called ransomware, which is very common, where people's computers are hacked and then their files are encrypted, and the only way that you can have those released is arguably by paying a ransom. The problem with paying a ransom to anybody in this case is that that does not guarantee that you're going to get your data back again. You could pay a ransom to somebody and they say thank you very much and go.
And then just go.
There's a degree of embarrassment associated with these things happening that you should contact the police. I have had contact myself with Norfolk and Suffolk Digital Crimes Department, with the police in Suffolk. They were very, very helpful, and in one case we did actually track the perpetrator to degree where they were in the country when they had attempted to break into a website a few years ago. So they're very helpful, they're very sympathetic, and you should report these things. You know, you're demanding money with menaces, aren't you, if you're requiring a ransom to be paid. Adequate backups, make sure you've got copies of all of these things like your website, so that if stuff does get taken from you, you can say, okay, that's fine, I have a backup from last night that I can restore and I can carry on as normal. So it's taking that sort of those precautions beforehand.
Matt Porter from Matt Porter Web Design in Ipswich talking to me earlier today.